When I started down this avenue, this is when I suddenly discovered the network effects that Ether's got and how fast that has been. And, I'm not, and again, none of this is about philosophy of the space or anything else. I just looked at the network adoption and went, oh my God, we thought Bitcoin was big, but this was big. How are you seeing the difference in the ETH versus Bitcoin network adoption models?
Yeah, no, but you're exactly right. The ETH network is growing much faster than the Bitcoin network, and we all know why, right? It's more scalable, it's less decentralized, it's less scarce. So we don't know exactly what the scarcity is. We know what it is right now, but I think investors will always demand a discount from the Ethereum valuation because we won't know in some future fork what will happen, to the supply, whereas we do know what will happen to the Bitcoin supply. So you're just trading one against the other, but clearly Ethereum is a faster growing network, and per Metcalfe's law, the bigger the network gets, the more exponentially the valuation of that network becomes. And I've used the example of Apple Computer, where you can see if you look at their annual revenues, the more iPhones and all that stuff that they sell, the valuation goes up, exponentially to that until it gets to the point, and then when it gets to the point where the network is so powerful that it has such a large moat around it that even if I invent a far better iPhone tomorrow, I'm never going to be able to penetrate that network because it's too powerful. And I think Ethereum and Bitcoin, have reached those thresholds. That doesn't mean there won't be other coins and other networks out there, but I think they have satisfied the kind of the test to become big enough to be believed and taken seriously, right? I mean, a couple of years ago, a lot of investors said, well, this can get regulated out of existence pretty quickly. I think we've kind of, that ship has sailed, I think.
So here's my hypothesis here. Both you and I spend a lot of work looking at network effects and the adoption curve, right? It's clearly a logarithmic trend that is exponential in linear terms over time as adoption drives the value of the network. And you've done huge amounts of work on that. I've done huge amounts of work on it. We both tend to agree that this is one of the larger network adoptions that we've seen. So the trend is up and to the right, even though it's volatile. So the macro that seems that the only macro thing I can see that really affects it seems to be year-on-year rate of change of M2, as you were talking about. And we've got to this negative year-on-year rate of change of M2, which is generally the bottom of the Bitcoin market and the crypto markets overall. Okay, fine. So that looks right. So what we're both trying to say, which is why the macro is so important here, is we're both saying, listen, it's unlikely that M2 is going to remain so negative. We're already seeing China increasing its M2. So even if we don't return to QE and massive rate cuts, let's assume we don't. I actually think we'll get some of that maybe later, but irrelevant. But because the chart is up and to the right, you're holding a ball underwater, a beach ball underwater. And the moment M2 stops contracting, the ball rises just because of the, is that how you, so, I'm very, very focused on crypto again right here. I'm very focused on bonds, very focused on crypto. And it feels that the crypto markets want to start pricing this. How are you thinking through that?
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
I agree with that. I think Bitcoin and the rest of crypto just has to survive this winter of deleveraging. It's the winter of our deleveraging, and because that's an idiosyncratic thing where we all know the stories of who blew up and this and that, and clearly that whole kind of balloon is shrinking, which at the end of the day, of course, will be I think a very big opportunity, because then you can get in based on the fundamentals, which, as you mentioned, the network adoption curve is up and to the right. We don't know the slope, but it's still up and to the right. But it's nice to be able to get in when you don't have to worry about if some person is going to get liquidated and drive another 10,000 points, down. And so it seems to me we're getting towards the end of that cycle. You're seeing headlines of hedge funds and players blowing up. And, usually when you're at the beginning of a downturn, you have a sense that people are blowing up, but you don't know who they are. And when they start making the headlines, I think it's when you're later in the cycle. So I agree that it will be nice to start looking at the fundamentals. I mean, we're all looking at the fundamentals, but to start having price respond to fundamentals without worrying about, who's over their skis and has to puke out.
Like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
I have bad news for you. If you're not rich by now, you're screwed. And if you're in debt, you're even double screwed. How so, you might wonder? Well, the sad truth is that you're working your whole life to make someone else rich. The mega corporations, the banks, the politicians, everyone is getting richer. They get your money. And what is even worse, they get your time, they get your life. You are not even in a rat race, you're in a financial prison. But what could a solution for you look like? Honestly, I don't know, but I know what a solution for me would look like. It's very simple. I use whatever money I have and I multiply it with 1,000. This could make my life much easier and probably yours as well. If you have $1,000 available and multiply this with 1,000, I believe that this could solve some financial issue for the one or the other. Of course, if you're ugly, you would have to multiply it with much more than 1,000. My name is Markus Dahn, and this is what I decided to do. I decided to 1000x my money. This is not a joke. I know what you may be thinking. What is this guy talking about? How should this work? This is not possible. Well, I made a detailed video where I laid out my plan. And some clever folks might even want to look at this plan and copy it and do exactly what I do. This is just a little hint on the side. You have two options. You leave, you forget what you have seen. You do whatever you're doing and you hope that somehow you get some other results. Good luck with that. Or you click the link below the video. You enter your email address because I'm not showing this to everybody. You at least watch my video on how I plan to 1000x my money. The choice is yours. Make the right choice. Join me. See what a different future you could have. See at least how I plan to do the 1000x. So click on the link below, enter your email address, and I see you on the other side. Your Markus Dahn.